Hey everybody out there in BeastNet land. Brother Boggs here. I want to invite you down to the grand opening of
Connect to a Juice Bar.
118 Broadway, Seattle, Washington.
They make freshly made juices, smoothies, and fruit bowls.
Just clean, healthy eating that tastes just as good as it makes you feel. Grand opening November 17th, going through the end of the year. Come on down and check it out. Proud sponsors of BeastNet Podcast.
BeastNet Podcast, sponsored in part by James Safety Services, OCR Buddy, and supported by the fitness community. Here we discuss all things fitness related, running, rucking, mental health and preparedness, and of course, obstacle course racing. Welcome to the BeastNet.
Hey everybody, Mike with BeastNet here, and today I've got Amber Johnston with me. So she's been on before, so let everyone who doesn't know who you are kind of let you know who you are real quick.
Yeah, so Amber Johnston, longtime obstacle course racer. Last couple of years, if you're kind of a newbie in the sport, I say newbie, I'm like an old geriatric at this point, probably don't recognize me. I spent I've been in Texas now for 2 years, but with COVID, it really doesn't count. And the 3 years prior to that, I was living in Alaska. So didn't get to do a lot of racing, had some injuries up there as well with my shoulder that had to be some massive surgery for that. And so I was kind of out of the game for a while. And beginning of last year, I was like, yes, all right, we're back in the country, we're back in the US. All right, I'm going to race. And then had one race, COVID hit, and we've all pretty much just been hibernating at home. So in a nutshell, that's me.
I mean, technically Alaska is the US, but not really.
It is, but when you live there, it doesn't feel like it.
My sister lives in Adak, which I guess is like way, like you can see Russia. Like,
okay, I was gonna say, I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, Adak, it's one of the islands, and it's some crazy island where, I mean, like if you have a problem and you need the police, you have to wait for them to fly in from another island. I mean, kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a different world up there.
So where are you at in Texas? I think you told me last time, but
yes, I'm actually outside of Austin. I'm about 40 miles north of Austin.
Okay, because I know I do another show as my comedy persona called Down the Rabbit Hole, and the guy I do the host with, he's leaving tomorrow and going to Spring.
I think that's south of me.
I think he said it's somewhere near, I think it's south of Dallas, I think he said.
Okay.
But he's actually going to San Antonio right now because his house in Spring isn't finished. So he bought another house in San Antonio that he's going to turn into a rental house later. He had two houses in Tacoma too. He had a rental house and his normal house.
Okay,
so
not a bad.
Having a house built, and then they weren't finished, so he sold the rental house so he could buy a rental house down there because he's like, I'm out of Washington. So
it's a good supplement.
He's been trying to go. So.
Oh yeah. San Antonio is only about an hour and a half away from me, so not too far. I like San Antonio. It's a good area.
Yeah. We're actually, me and my wife are thinking of Texas. So.
Oh really?
Yeah, we've been looking at it. In fact, I did the Dallas Ultra a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Which was. It's something I've been going for a while, and I was so happy to finally finish. And I'm like, I got the Ultra. I was slightly upset, and I was nice to the staff, but I didn't want to be because I was kind of ticked off. But
you didn't get your medal, right?
Nope, I did not. I finished, and they told me that we're out of medals, and I'm like, I came to Dallas to walk away with a buckle.
So yeah, holding that buckle, like that's what it's all.
Yeah.
I remember seeing your post, and I was just like staring. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'd have been as nice as him. I know it's not their fault, but at the same point,
well,
in that moment,
too, I was finisher number, I think like 260, and there was this 300 and something that finished. So there was more than 100 people.
Wow.
I mean, if I had been like, one of the last 2 or 3 people, like I have been on races, I would have been like, okay, whatever. I took too long, but I'm like, it only took us 11 and a half hours.
Oh, that's not bad. No,
and we were done, and it's just like all of us are looking like, you what?
Yeah, so, that's crazy. I'd have been so mad.
Yeah. But we went there, and part of the trip too, and the reason why we kind of picked Dallas, one, because it's supposed to be one of the easier ultras. Plus, I figured if I'm going to get an ultra and get a belt buckle, I'm going to do it in Texas.
Oh yeah, it just makes sense. Like where else can you wear belt buckles in the country that's like it's socially acceptable?
Yeah.
Texas.
So, and then we were, but that was a little bit discouraging. But then we went to I met someone on the race, a lady named Jamie, who happen to live in the town that my wife's been like focused on for where she wants to move. And that's
Okay.
Conroe, Texas.
Oh yeah, okay.
So she lived in Conroe. So we're like, oh, well, we're going to go over. That's where we're going to stay for 3 days just so we can check it out and see if it's, if it's really what she wants. And we went over there, we had dinner with them, and then we walked around, and yeah, Conroe's what she wants. So
that's really cool. That's awesome.
They have a Margaritaville. I mean, no.
All right. You can't say no to that.
No, but there was a lot too. I mean, it's just like, It was 45 minutes to Houston from there. And with what I do for a living, I mean, I'm like only 2 hours from Dallas, and I'm a construction safety guy.
Oh, there's plenty of that here too.
So, and what's funny is I mentioned it to my company today that, hey, this is something that we kind of talked about, but now it's looking like it's something we may actually do. And my boss is like, well, guess we got to open an office down there. I'm like, sweet, that works for me.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's always nice too. And the company's like, let's make this happen. You're like, yes, I don't have to find a new job. This is amazing.
And I've already got friends down there. You're down there. My buddy Big B's going to be down there. I met Jamie and her boyfriend. So it's
absolutely.
And it's gorgeous down there. I mean, in
you can't beat the weather.
Doing a beast or an ultra in October at 87 degrees.
Right. Yeah. You're almost like, it's almost too hot. Like you're like, what?
It was just about right. It got to get to a point where I'm like, okay, this Washington boy doesn't do this heat so well, but give me a couple months there. I'll get acclimated. I'll get it.
Exactly.
So I know it's tough because I mean, that's one thing, where, watching your story, when you train so hard and then you have an injury. And I applaud you for choosing to do the surgery and everything else, because there's so many of us, because a lot of people know I was supposed to have knee surgery 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've never done it. And I'm finally getting back into running. And I did the Battle Miles Death Race on Sunday, which is, for those that don't know, I'm not supposed to tell you, it's 30 miles plus a bunch of workouts every mile. So, I mean, it's brutal. And
that's a lot.
It is. And it took us 8 hours and 45 minutes. So we still did a pretty good time.
Yeah, it's trucking.
By the end of it, my knee is just throbbing. And I'm like, well, that's that knee that I was supposed to have surgery on 20 years ago. It's doing better now than it was, but it's like, now I'm thinking back, maybe I should have done the surgery. Maybe what would it be like, but we all worry about that. So how
a big decision.
How have you been? I know you had, and I mean, knee surgery compared to what you did, I mean, any surgery is insane, but I mean, you went through some crazy ones.
I did. So in the past 3 years, I actually just figured this out the other day. In the past 3 years, I've had 4 surgeries. One was cosmetic. It was my choice. I actually just had my boobiversary like a couple days ago. Very exciting for that. As an athlete, females, you understand those are the first things to go away.
And it is one of those things. It's hard though. I do have to admit that's the one surgery. I mean, I want to be like, hey, it seems like it went well, but then, you feel like a perv, like.
Right, exactly. I'm always like, oh no, feel free. These were expensive. Look away.
How do you compliment on that? It's like, yes, your boobs look nice. I'm sorry.
Right. But wait, I'm open about it. I mean, I'm talking about it on a podcast. But outside of that,
it was on Facebook. I mean, you were all over Facebook. So I mean,
absolutely.
It's funny how you see people are trying to hide it, and you're just like, no, this is what I did because this is for me.
Well, clearly, if you know me and you've ever seen me before, you're gonna notice something's different. Yeah. So it's like, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, And also, I did it for me. I did it because as a parent, as a mom that breastfed, that depletes, breast tissue. Being an athlete depletes breast tissue, and I have broad shoulders, right? So I wear, sometimes larger size outfits, but then they're baggy in the boobs. Like that's not comfortable. Like it doesn't look right. Like that makes you self-conscious. And I work out too damn hard to have a fit body to then be self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And no amount of push-ups or chest press is going to grow it. Trust me, I tried. My doctor actually complimented me on my muscle.
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it shows who you are. I mean, it's one of those things a lot of people, would just be like, oh, but you're like, no, this is for me. It's one of those things that I want to feel. It makes you feel better about yourself, and whatever makes you feel better is right. There's no right or wrong in that. If it makes you feel better, then that's right. So
yep, I completely agree.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So outside of that one, it has been 4 surgeries, and that is actually a very tasking surgery on the body, because it does, stretching the muscle and things like that. It actually was harder than I anticipated. But my most recent 2 surgeries were actually back surgery. So people joke because when people are like, "Oh my God, what did you have done?" And I'm like, "Well, they basically cut me in half." Because they did.
Yeah.
The first surgery, they went in through my stomach to replace 2 discs with titanium spacers, because the discs had basically shifted apart because the back of my disc was fractured. So I've had a broken back probably since I was a teenager. So a little backstory before I guess I talk about the surgeries. When I was 18, I had just had my son, and I left the hospital in a wheelchair, normal, but I kept telling the doctors that something wasn't right. Something in my hips wasn't right. I couldn't walk. I was still in a lot of pain. I couldn't move. And I was a fit 18, almost 19-year-old, and I'm like, why? Like, I just delivered vaginally with no epidural, no pain meds. Clearly I can handle pain, and now I can't walk afterwards. Like, something's up.
Yeah.
Doctors kind of gaffed me off. So 3 days later, I wound up in the emergency room. Excruciating pain. I hadn't slept. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. I was trying to take care of a newborn. I mean, just world's flipped upside down as it is. And now I'm over here just bawling because I'm in so much pain. So they did x-rays and figured out that my pelvis had separated, which is normal when you give birth, but it didn't go back together. So I had 3 extra inches in my hips. So between my SI joints and my pubic bones, my hips were just literally doing whatever they wanted, going which way. I mean, just like flip-flopping around. But when they did that x-ray, they found in my lower back that my back was broken. And of course, the doctors are so focused on my hips, and they're like, "Oh, well, you have some disc degeneration and your back's broken. Are you aware of this?" I had no idea. Like, do you ever have back pain? Of course I have back pain. I was a competitive gymnast, a competitive cheerleader, pole vaulter, tennis player. Like, yes, I have back pain. I just thought it was normal. I didn't think anything of it. So Carrie, they told me, "Oh, we'll figure out the hip thing, basically just wrap me like a mummy for however long it takes for my body to absorb all of the hormones that your body produces when you deliver a child. Once that's all out of your system, everything should tighten back up. You'll be fine." I'm like, "Okay, great. What about this back thing? Like, why, like my back's broken, you said, like, what do I do?" They said, "Oh no, you'll be fine. It should never get any worse. Don't worry about it." As an almost 19-year-old with a newborn, I'm still in college. I'm just like, okay. I still went and cheered throughout college. I was still in a sport, still tumbling, stunting, running, staying fit and active. And I was fine for a very long time. I mean, I would have pain here and there. I'd throw my back out. I'd have, days or weeks where like I couldn't really do a whole lot, but eventually it'd get better. Fast forward to now being a semi-professional obstacle course racer. And I spent the last probably about 6 years of my race career, which really only gave me about 1 good race season, that I wasn't running in excruciating pain. A lot of people who saw me at races probably remember people always laughed because I would have KT tape running under my shorts, down my hamstring, down my inner thigh. Like, I was trying anything I could to figure out why this pain was so bad. And of course, a lot of people not understanding, and I didn't know how bad my back was. It was just like, "Oh, you need to train more. You need to run more. You just need to run more. You need to run more." Mm-hmm. Come to find out, I shouldn't have been running more. I really should have went and had an MRI done on my back, because so the fracture, of course, never got better. There's just not enough vascularity there for the bones to heal. So once they're broken, which allows the disc to slide forward. And although I have a very strong core and, very fit, your body still just gravity works. So 2 of the discs were compressed. 1 was bulging, 1 was herniated, but they were both completely deteriorated. So if you've ever seen an MRI, or if you go on my Instagram, I've got all the photos on there, kind of understand what I'm talking about. The disc should be white, and the space should be pretty even between each disc, and mine is not. So 2 of them are like clear. And the 1 disc is like all like this weird, like googly, like, have you ever seen the movie Flubber and how he just kind of like does whatever he wants? That's how my disc looked. Like, that's the best way I think I can describe it. It's not. And when luckily my family doctor here in Texas, when I had gone to physical therapy, I was just like, okay, COVID's going on. There's no races. Let's try to figure this thing out. Like, it's time. spent months in physical therapy, and even the doctor's like, I have no idea what is going on with you. We have done everything we can. Like, you need to go like get some more tests done, get some MRIs, get some x-rays. Like, let's figure this out. So my doctor said, well, I know your back's bad, and I know you're saying you're having hip pain, but let's just do an MRI on both. And I'm grateful that she did, because they found all the issues with my back, and how bad it was. But they also found that I have a labrum tear in my hip, two cysts, and I also have an extra bone. Not sure where the extra bone comes. I'm like, this is so weird. They're not concerned about it. They said it's actually fairly common. Most people just never know. But I'm like, that's just still weird, because I also have an extra bone in my ankle. But that's a whole nother. Apparently, I'm just like an extra bony person, I guess. But not where I need them. So finding that out in the beginning of summer this year was pretty devastating. I knew, I always knew I had a bad back. I knew I had issues, but I'm 35 years old looking at back and potentially hip surgery. I'm like, again, geriatric, I'm like, all right, somebody give me my walker, take her out back to pasture. Like, it's time. I mean, I'm just like, what is going on with my body? But talking with the doctor, he's one of the best in the nation. Dr. Dreyer, dude, you are awesome and a lifesaver. Like, if you're in the area and you need to have any kind of back stuff done, Central Texas Spine, he is your man. Like, amazing. He kept me calm through the whole thing. I mean, explained everything, answered all my questions. When I walked into the office, I was expecting him to say, oh, you've got to do so many cortisone shots and all this, all the song and dance that insurance companies always want you to do. And he goes, all right, you said you want this fixed. Well, then we're going to do a 2-stage surgery. And he just starts talking. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah, well, wait.
2 surgeries. Like, wait, back it up here. I didn't want you to tell me that I needed cortisone shots, because I'm not going to do them, because it just causes more issues. But I also didn't think you were going to jump straight to surgery. And when he explained it, like, the bone's broken, it's never going to heal. This is what's caused this. It all made sense. So I knew, sure, I could wait. I could, change my whole life. I could not run. I could not race. I could not do any of the things that I enjoy doing and I've built my life around, or I could fix it. I bawled in my car in my Jeep for a little while before I drove home. My husband's like, please don't drive. Like, you're not in the right position to drive. And I was like, it's fine. I'm okay. I get home. I gave myself like a day of like a pity party, because when you just get that kind of news, I mean, you have to. But, looked at it like I do anything else. It's 2 surgeries. It's not fun. It's not great, but I can come back from this. And when people think of back surgeries, that's typically not the kind of attitude that they have. It's, oh, I've had my back cut open, or my stomach cut open, whatever. I'm done. It's time to stop doing everything. And it's really the worst thing that you can do. And I'm in a couple support groups on Facebook for people with this issue. So it's called spondylolisthesis. Spondylolisthesis is kind of the worst of the spondies. There's 3 different ones. There's spondylolysis, spondylolisthesis, and I can't think of the third one. There is a third one now, but they kind of go up in stages and then in grades. And the grades are, once you're at spondylolisthesis, how bad your slipped disc is. Because that's basically what happens. If the disc slips, the vertebrae slips over the disc and forces it out. And I was at a grade 2 lying down. So realistically, standing and bending, I was probably more of like a 3. Which is that's up to 75% of your disc moving out of place. So it's pretty significant. I mean, you're looking at spinal cord damage, you're looking at, a lot of pinched nerves. I mean, if anybody's had sciatica, that's basically what I was causing myself every time I was running. So I was running with sciatica for 6 years. And I mean, it pays to be, I guess, a pain in the ass, because I just kind of pushed through and was like, this is normal. It's fine. I can't feel my big toe, but it's all right. And hindsight, I should have pushed to get it looked at sooner, but I was being stubborn. I was enjoying racing. I love being around everybody. I didn't want to not be competing. But now we get to rebuild. And now my big joke is, all right, it's time to get fast again. Like, once I'm allowed to start running, which is likely not for a year post-op. The plan is to get back to running, get back to racing, get back to DecaFit, DecaStrong, kind of the things that I'm good at, and really show people that, yeah, I may have 5 rods and 12 screws and 2 titanium spacers. I mean, I'm basically the bionic woman at this point in my back. But once the bone grows back and my spine is fused, it's new bone. I basically just have a sturdier bone. So I should be able to return to all my activities with no problems, or, limited problems. I'll have to change some of my training techniques and things like that. But it's a pretty massive undertaking. I guess I kind of rambled on about that as far as like the background of how I got here, but the surgeries itself.
It's good to know. It's good to know. It's good for people to understand that how it got there. Because it's one of those things I think a lot of us, like I mentioned my knee, I've ran with knee pain for years and I deal with it. But you said you're 35. At 35, if you're having that much back pain, like for me, my knee's annoying, but I'm still running 100 miles a month. I did 30 miles this last weekend, and I'm probably after this going to go down to the treadmill in the hotel and run a 5K or whatever. I still run every day. So it's not enough pain that I can't do anything. And it's not constant. Where you're talking about like for 6 years, you're having every time you go and do what we're supposed to love. And it's killing you and you're in excruciating pain. But obviously you love it so much, you're still doing it.
Right.
And you're young enough by doing this surgery, you should be extending the life of you being able to do that. Where without the surgery, 100%. You maybe had, honestly, you have to think about maybe a year or two before you finally get to, even at 6 years, most people would have been like, okay, the pain's too much. I'm done. I'm just going to lay on the couch and die now.
Oh yeah. My doctor, when I walked in and he pulled out my MRI, his PA, her jaw dropped and she's like, oh my God, how did you just walk in here? I don't understand how you're walking. And I'm like, it's that bad? And she's like, oh, honey, most patients that we see in here, they don't make it to this point. I see on some of the support groups, even, people are grade 1, just a couple centimeter slip, but if it's slipped in the wrong direction and it's sitting on a nerve, that pain, nerve pain is a different kind of pain. And actually my dad's always had back problems too. And I'm trying to convince him that maybe it's time to go get his back fixed and looked at. Surgery's come a long way from even 10 to 20 years ago. So they did my surgery in 2 stages. First one, they went in through my stomach. Thankfully, they didn't have to actually cut the stomach muscles. They just separated them. And then they still sewed them back together just to help prevent anything from, moving. So that was the easiest of the 2 surgeries. I really thought that would be the harder of the 2 because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going through my stomach. You're moving all my organs. Like, this is crazy. Super easy peasy. Really wasn't, it really wasn't that painful. Couple days of pain meds and I was good. Both surgeries I had on a Thursday and I was back working from home on Monday. Again, that shows just my level of, resiliency and just going to push through. The back one though, that's the one that I really underestimated. Thinking the first one, that was such a cakewalk, but as an athlete, you have more muscle and you have thicker tendons. So when they have to scrape, as the doctor put it, scrape all of that muscle and tendon off the bone to be able to drill in and put the screws in, all of that muscle has to go back and reattach. And that was excruciating. It took quite a few days for us to get the pain under control. And I've never taken, I don't like taking medicine, even through those 6 years. The doctor's like, all right, so what kind of pain meds are you on? Nothing. He's like, you weren't taking anything, not even Tylenol. Like, no. He's like, okay, you're not human. Like, I don't understand you. So even after surgeries, I don't like taking stuff because of just how it affects. I'm really big on what I put in my body. And so after surgery, being in such excruciating pain and having to, take so many pain pills, it really kind of scared me of, did I make the right decision? I had, asked my husband, I was questioning myself, like, did I make the right call? Maybe I should have waited and just stuck it out a little bit further. And my husband looked at me as I'm, sitting there writhing in pain, icing my back and everything. And he's like, honey, you couldn't run 10 steps without limping. He's like, it was time. You made the right call. Trust the process. Take it day by day. And I got to keep reminding myself of that because there was days where I'm like, I'm out walking in a back brace with a walker at 35 going, all my neighbors are used to seeing me push a sled up and down my, road with like 300 pounds on it. And now I'm out with a walker, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, okay, put the ego away.
Yep.
And just let's start over, one foot in front of the other. So I have done my surgeries were 2 weeks apart. So if anybody does look at my pages and stuff and kind of see, and the way I track it is, my first surgery was 9 weeks ago. My second one was 7 weeks ago. So I'm 7 and 9 weeks out of surgery. And I've done over 90 miles of walking, and I've biked 15 and a half miles on the Echo bike. So I was cleared at 6 weeks post-op for my back. So 6 and 8 weeks. I was cleared by my doctor to actually start adding in weightlifting. Super light, upper body stuff, even said pull-ups, which I was like, I can do pull-ups already? What? I mean, I was shocked. I haven't attempted it yet. My lower back's still pretty tight. So if you engage correctly in a pull-up, it does pull through your lower back, and I'm just not quite ready for that yet. But again, that's where I have grown as an athlete and, just gotten smarter as I've gotten older, that listen to your body, take the time to recover. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The joke is I'm a sprinter, literally. That's all what I did in track in high school and even college. I'm better at short distance. Yeah, I'm not a marathoner. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm 5 foot. I did get taller. I'm back to being 5'2.5" now. I had shrunk for a few years and I couldn't figure out why. It's because of my back. So I'm 5'2.5" and like 135 pounds. So I'm like this meaty little, stocky, just ball of muscle that I wasn't built to go long. I was built to go short and fast. So it's a big change for me though, of, just being patient and really listening to my body and seeing. It's amazing to see what your body's capable of when you take care of it. Again, even the spontaneous support group I'm in, watching these people's stories, I feel so bad for some of them because they're 6 weeks out and they're barely getting a mile. But I have to, and they look at what I'm doing and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm not going further. Or, oh, you're crazy for going that far. You should not be doing that. And it's like, I had a different starting point. I was running up to, 70, 75 miles a month prior to surgery, painfully, but I was doing it. So I was prepared, my body's capable of that kind of thing. But it's just one of those things I just tell everybody, like, it's never too late to start. And even like, if you do have to have some kind of a surgery, some kind of a setback, just start doing something.
Yeah.
You only get one body. So you've got to take care of it, and you want it to last as long as humanly possible. In today's day and age, that could be 100 years. It could be, over that.
Yeah. And that's one thing too, is, it's amazing to see, because that's one of the things that I mentioned before, like when I broke my foot, I destroyed my foot, and what, gosh, it's been 5 years, 6 years now, 2006. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So almost 5.5. But when I did it, I made the mistake, unlike you, where you're still kind of working through it. I'm like, well, I guess I'm done. And that's why, it came to, at the end of, beginning of 2020, I was 290 pounds. And now I'm 220 now. I've gained some back, but I hit that like 180, and even my boss is like, are you sick?
Yeah, you should. Some of the pictures, I was like, okay, you're looking a little too skinny here. I was like, your body's just not built to be that lean. No. Like, it's just weird, it's so, and everybody's has got that happy place. It's funny you brought up the weight thing, because a lot of my friends who aren't athletes, when they heard I was having the surgery, they're all like, oh my gosh, are you so afraid of gaining a bunch of weight? And I was like, no, I'm actually worried about the opposite. I'm going to lose all of the muscle that I have. And, when I had all the issues, when I found out about my back being broken and my pelvis separating and all that, they put me on bed rest. I have pictures of me holding my son when he's like first born, and I look like a skeleton. My eyes are sunken into my head. People probably thought I was, anorexic or had an eating disorder. And I'm not making fun of that by any means, but how muscular I was even through my pregnancy and leading up to delivering, and then so fast afterwards, the drastic decline of just losing all of that muscle. People were really concerned that there was something wrong. And I had to keep explaining, like, I'm on bed rest. I can't walk. I can't lift. I couldn't even move my child from his, hopper next to me into my lap. I couldn't do any of that. Yeah. So it all ran away so quickly. And that's why it's so important that, even throughout this whole process, when I asked my doctor, okay, what's my goals after surgery? And he's like, well, all you can do is walk. I was like, okay, I'm going to walk and walk
Something.
and walk
Yeah.
and walk and walk. And, I made it a point, even, he said, he's like, the goal is that the day of surgery, we get you up walking. Not everybody can do that. And I'm like, oh, I will do that. Like, if that's the goal, it's going to happen. And, sometimes it's just getting over that fear of doing it. And like, it's hard when you're injured of like, oh, this is it. I joke, take me out back, put me out to pasture kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not, but we can have those thoughts for a little bit, but I think it's how we cut back. Exactly. Like I said, I gave myself like a day of pity party of like, oh my God, my world is ending. What's going on? We still don't know if this is going to solve all the issues because I do still have the torn labrum in my hip. The hip surgeon, I saw him first actually, because I was like, oh, all right, let's see, hip surgery or back surgery. What's the lesser of two evils? I think hip. Let's go with the hip doctor first, right? I'm thinking like, yeah, let's just do the easy thing first. Because if that can hold me off for a few more years, I'm good. Hip doctor took one look at me and was like, I'm not touching you until you get your back looked at. I was like, oh shit. All right, fine. So there is still potential that, it could be a year from now, it could be 10 years from now that I could need to have hip surgery as well. But again, the more I can do to keep that at bay, the better off I'm going to be. And that was something that both of my surgeons, my hip surgeon and my spine surgeon both said, was that the only thing that has saved me and kept me from being under the knife sooner, with as long as my back has been like this, even not knowing it, was how strong I am.
Yeah.
The fact that my core was so strong and I was, my form is good. I paid attention to those types of things. People they laugh sometimes at, videos I post and things that I do. I was a gymnast, and when I do anything, my toes are pointed and my lats are contracted. And every little tiny detail is, I think about that because it's just ingrained in my head that, I can't get rid of it. My physical therapist kept yelling at me. She's like, if I see your toes pointed one more time, I'm going to smack them. And she had me flex my foot for everything because it was actually moving nerves around to cause less pain as well. So I didn't even know that was doing it, but I was kind of twofold. It was one, it's ingrained in me because of being a gymnast, but two, it was actually keeping things from hurting. So I was doing it even more frequently on stuff that I should not have had a pointed foot. So it's, we don't know what the road's going to lead, but having that strength and having that background and of course, learning all of these things has really made a difference in kind of how I'm tackling this recovery versus how I even tackled, my shoulder surgery recovery. So it's just, listen to your body. I see a lot of athletes and you get excited about OCR and whatever sport you're in, and you just dive in, right? You're doing races every weekend and you're just wearing your body down. I'm not pointing any fingers or anything. I was there too. We all had that excitement. We all did it, but we've got to take care of ourselves. And
we do.
It leads to burnout too.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, a lot of people probably haven't realized. I mean, I guess you can probably, if you pay attention to my Facebook, after about June, I hit burnout and bad. I mean, I've been keeping the 100 miles a month, but it hasn't been a race every weekend. I mean, there's been the Spartan race here or there when they came up, but it wasn't for a long time there. I mean, it was every weekend I'm doing a half, a full, I'm doing all sorts of stuff. And then all of a sudden it was like June, my body's like, whoa, hold on, buddy. It's like, you realize you're 43 years old and just got skinny again. And I'm like, oh yeah, my body, told me. So I took a break for a while and I really have been kind of relaxing. The Ironman, that one really was a hard hit for me when I DNF'd. It was 19 minutes. It's like, if I just would have been, I keep thinking in my head, if I just would have been that much faster on the bike.
But you could evaluate and pick out every little thing, but it wasn't the right time. And like you said too, that was after your burnout and everything else too, that maybe pulled a few Spartans out of there leading up to it. There's so many things to evaluate, but that's the best part, is that when you do realize that, which is like, that's a huge goal for you though, to realize that. Like, it's, just like, it's almost like an addiction, right? Like, you got to like admit you have a problem, and you got to like come to, facts with it. And then it's really, our sport can be super addictive. That mentality kind of applies And it's how do you manage that and then realizing it so that you can do better next time and next year and next season. And that
that's
is
it.
one thing
So
too. I will.
yeah,
Oh yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
doing Ironman. I've already signed up for Ironman in next year. And I've
Awesome.
also, I'm looking at, I got a new bike, mainly because my wife's dad is a lunatic and goes to garage sales and buys bike, and
That's awesome.
he came home with a Specialized Les, which is
Wow.
like a really nice road bike
Yeah.
for like $20.
What?
Yeah,
You don't that. Oh, okay. Okay. So he's amazing. That's
he
awesome.
is. I mean, like, yeah.
That's,
So yeah,
and
I saw
honestly,
that and I'm
that's
like,
one thing.
yeah, that's mine now.
Right, yeah, you're like, I'll take this and here's $20. Thank
Yeah.
you. I mean, it's the gear, gear makes a big difference.
Mhm.
Having the right, I see so many people, it's not a bike, but it's shoes, right? What shoes does everybody wear? What shoes should I get? Go get your gait and go get a gait analysis. Go have a professional watch you walk, watch you run and figure out because, and this isn't, I've actually, since all the back problems, I started running in Hoka's because the cushion really was helping with some of the pounding on my
Yeah.
back. But previously, Hoka's didn't work for me. I was a Saucony girl. But it's, Brooks, oh my God, worst shin splints ever. But a lot of people love Brooks.
Yeah, I'm a
There's
Brooks
no
guy.
right, exactly. Like, and I tell everybody, I'm like, it's not that I hate on Brooks. I think they're a great shoe. It doesn't work for my body type. And say it like bikes, right? If you've got a heavier bike, a lighter bike, what, like all the tensioning. And I mean, all of that plays in
It does.
to your abilities. And I mean,
Getting
it's,
a fit on the bike. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, having, I only had a road bike for a short period, but I had it, I was on it. I was like, okay, not bad. I just didn't have the time to really invest in being good at biking and, cycling. And then I went and had an actual like adjustment, a pro back in Ohio when I was still living there. He went and tweaked and did all of these things. And then he's like, all right, he put me on the trainer. And even on the trainer, I was like, wow, this is night and day. My efficiency was so much better. And then when I went out for my first ride outside, I'm like, this is nuts. How much faster, how much longer I could go. I still didn't have time to do it, but it was just incredible the difference that $100 on an adjustment made. I mean, it was probably the best $100 I ever spent if I just had the time to keep up with it.
And see, I need to do that with this one. I've got it all set up. I did at home fit, but I need to go take it and have a real one done just to do it. Because like with the shoes, and what I tell everyone with shoes too is, for me, like right now, I've got the Brooks, and that's become my thing. I think I don't remember. It's either their afflictions or the addictions. I don't remember. I had one and then switched to the other.
Yeah.
But I go every year. I'll go through a year just using a certain type. And then at the end of that year, when I go to get in, which I run 100 miles a month. So I buy new shoes every 3 or 4 months. So, but every year I'll go do a gait again because I had the ones, and then they're like, yeah, these would be great for someone who's 260 pounds. But now that you're, 200 pounds, you need to switch to these, and I was like, really? And I switched, and I could tell the difference. They're lighter, they're faster, and it's like they changed so much. And I mean, for a while, I was New Balance. I went once, and New Balance was one, and the shoes change every year.
The same model can be different year to year. Exactly. That's so true. And it's irritating. Shoe people, if you're listening, stop doing that.
Because like I said, I had New Balance for a while. I used to use Pearl Izumis, which I don't even think they make them anymore, but Pearl Izumis were my favorite. They were great. And those were the ones that saved me. Because when I first started running back in 2009, I was getting splints immediately. Because of course I did what everyone did. I went and got Nikes. Nikes is the best, right? So I went and got Nikes, and I was getting shin splints so bad I couldn't even run 100 feet without pain. And I'm like, I'm stupid. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And a friend of mine was like, go to this store. They will measure you, have you run on them, and they will tell you what shoes you need. And I'm like,
oh my God.
So
and I wish that would have been more of a thing when I was in high school. Yeah. Oh man.
So I went and did it, and they told me, okay, you need these Pearl Izumis for $150. I'm like, $150, fine, let's do it. Bought them. Like, whatever, let's try it. Bought them, and I literally put them on, and like a week later ran a half marathon with no pain, no nothing. And I'm like, this is the best $150 I've ever spent. And ever since
Yes.
then, it's like I go get, and I'm like you. Do not ask me what shoes I wear. Go get measured, have them check your gait, and they will tell you what you need. Because my shoes
Exactly.
won't, like you said,
Yeah.
Brooks don't work for you. Brooks are what works for me, and
Right.
that's it, and it's even with like, OCR shoes.
Oh,
For a
yeah.
long time I used the Innovates, you know,
Mm.
the Talons.
And I never even tried them. Everybody always innovate, innovate. And I was like, they're zero drop. I can't do that. I know I can't do that. I was like, that's just too much for me.
I worried about the zero drop, but they were fine, which normally I don't use zero drop, but they were okay. But then what ended up happening was after my foot injury, my left foot's like wider and the innovates are
Oh,
very narrow. So I was losing feeling in my toes while I was running. So I
oh,
ended up
that's not good.
switching to, the Ultras, which are a wider toe box. So now all
Yeah.
of a sudden, once again, they change over time, but and that's it. I mean, now I don't get the pain, I don't get all that. And it's, get the right shoes, with
It is.
injuries, with
It's
anything,
so,
it keeps you from getting the injuries. Cause that's the thing is you get to be, my age and you're younger than me, you start getting older, all those mistakes we made as
they
teenagers
come
and
back and
everything else
haunt you.
start to come back. And that,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, that's one of the
Yeah.
big things.
My dad always laughs because with all the, I've had shoulder surgery and back surgery, my hips messed up and all this. And he's like, it's all from gymnastics. I never should have let you do gymnastics. It was just organized child abuse. And I was like, Dad, I would have like never let you live it down if you wouldn't have gymnastics is still at my heart. I mean, my number one sport. I mean, I coached for a very long time, even. I mean, that's how, I was always, for over half my life, I've been involved in the sport. And I still to this day, neighbor kids, whatever, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can you help? Like one-on-one sessions, whatever. I'm like, absolutely, because I love it. So I'm like, but there are things I look back and I'm like, oh, if I would have done this differently, or if I would have done that, I maybe could have prevented some of this. And like, so it's important, like the gear. And then two, just even like your training and your coaches.
Mhm.
One coach may work for somebody, but it may not work for you. Like you've got to find who's gonna, and I've had some great coaches over the years, and I've had some ones that didn't quite work out very well, or,
Mhm.
people giving me advice that I was like, this doesn't seem like the right thing, but I'm always up to try something new. Let's give it a shot. I'm a personal trainer too. So like I have my own, I've got an athletic training background. So I really understand the body and all of that. But, for me, it's easy to kind of pinpoint like what's good and bad, but it's not so easy for everyone else. But don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to try, bounce around, try
Mhm.
something for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. And if you're not seeing the progression that you want, go to somebody different, or maybe, do your own research. But when you do your own research, I've got to say you can find anything to support what you're looking for.
You can.
That's my caveat to that is my 16-year-old, he's almost 17. Everything I say, he's got a counter for. Well,
Mhm.
I read this online. I'm like, Cody, you can find anything to support whatever you think nowadays online. So that doesn't mean anything.
No, it
But
doesn't.
look at all the angles, right? Look at, even if it's a contradicting, and this just goes with life in general, but even if it's a contradicting theory to what you have, read it. It may give you some good information to help tweak how you're training, and give it a shot. It may work, it may not. Just like with dieting, right? It's always, everybody should do keto. Everybody should do what you see, the Atkins. Everybody should do paleo. Everybody should do, and it was like, that doesn't work. A lot of
No.
my friends do the same thing of, how, oh my gosh, like, how do you have a six pack? How do you stay so skinny? And I'm like, okay, one, I'm not skinny, I'm lean. Like, I'm very muscular. Like, I'm not small for my size, but I eat real food. I eat a lot of it. I'm about to go mow some tacos actually, because it's Taco Tuesday, but like, I
Yeah.
enjoy my food, but I've figured out, over the years, like what works and what doesn't. Like potatoes work better for me versus rice. I don't know why, but it does. But for somebody else, like for you, rice may work better than potatoes, or, a lower carb diet with a higher fat diet or whatever. But you got to be patient with it, and you've got to test things out, and then always be tweaking it too. I like that, once a year you go and get your gait, analyzed, because even with diets, it's the same type of thing of what works this year versus next year. And, a lot of people always say like at 40, everything changes. All right, well, if you're doing the same diet up to 40, like it may not work after 40. I mean, it's just your body's always changing and it's just listening to it.
And that's it. And it's also what you do. Like your diet's going to work depending on what else you're doing. So like for you right now, where you can't do the heavy lifting, you can't do the running, so your cardio is a little less. So your diet's going to change to adjust to what you're doing.
Yep.
And that's one of the big things for me is like when I kind of hit the, burnout and I backed off a little bit. I mean, I'm still running 100 miles a month, but what a lot of people don't realize, I was actually up until July or until June running closer to 170 miles a month.
I mean, that's impressive. Like, that's crazy. I mean, just mind blowing.
So I was burned out. And I mean, ever since then, last month was the first month I didn't hit like 100.2. I just like cracked the 100 just so I could say I did it. On the last day of the month, I was like looking at the last day going, okay, I need 6 miles today to hit 100 miles. But, I did it just to keep me going. But I backed off on the cardio, but I kept my diet the same. And that's part of the reason I went up to about 220. And I also started lifting again. So part of that's also muscle build. My chest, I started swimming a lot more, and my chest got bigger from the swimming and the lifting. So it's a little both. So that's why also I hate weight. I use it a lot as a measurement, but at the same time, I'm like, yes, I'm 220, but I'm not the same 220 I was last time.
Exactly. And I tell everybody, like, how your clothes fit, like, because if women are bad about that, and women, I'm picking on us, get mad at me if you want, but we are by nature, it's like, what's the scale say? What's the scale say? I need to lose 20 pounds. I need to this, I need to whatever. They're always amazed when I tell them my weight. People don't think I weigh 135 pounds because they don't take into account how much muscle I have.
Yeah. Muscle weighs a lot more than fat.
Right. And it takes up less space. So you don't realize it as much. And I was actually happy with how, because I have a good diet and I knew how to kind of manage it, even with surgery over the last, 2 months, I did lose a lot of muscle, but my weight didn't go down as much as I thought it might have. So I kept more of it than what I thought, but it's not obviously as tone or as like, it's not like bulging like it normally is, but it's still there, just kind of hiding. But I was super happy about that because that's really hard. But I tell everybody, get out your skinny jeans, whatever your like goal jeans are, and like check those. Don't get on the scale, just check those. See how those fit. It's have something like that, or measurements. Oh my gosh, when I would train women or even men, and I would, take their measurements and we would remeasure every so many weeks, and they're like, the scale's not moving. And I'm like, I can see the visual difference. We would take measurements and they've lost, 10 inches total. And they're just like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. And I'm like, that and pictures.
Yeah.
Pictures are, and you'll hate it at first, right? You're like, oh God. But then when you compare them, because when you look at the mirror, you look at yourself naked every day, right? I mean, so you don't see the changes, but other people do. Not that other people are seeing you naked every day, maybe a spouse, significant other, whatever, or hey, whatever you're into, nudist camps, whatever. Hey, I was saying, no judgment here, no shame in your game. I want that kind of like, but take the picture, because even if you're just comparing it side by side, you see so much more. And you can't take them every day. Take them, once a week, middle of the week, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Take a photo.
Well, and see, what helped me was because I did the diet bets.
Okay.
And on the diet bet, you have to get a picture of you standing on the scale and a picture of the scale. It was the pictures that helped me, because all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm like, whatever the scale's saying, but I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And then someone's like, look at your pictures from when you started. Yeah. And now look at now. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, that is, wow. And you don't see it because, like you said, I see myself every day.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden I'm seeing those pictures and I'm like, oh, I see it now, and that's kind of the thing you have to do. Like you said, get off the scale, look at the pictures. Because even now, like I said, if I look at what I was 220 before, I was chubby, like really chubby. And I mean, I've got a little bit of a gut right now that needs to go away again, but I'm also bigger in the chest. I can tell in my shirts, because if I wear, this is, an extra large shirt and I'm almost, busting out the shoulders. So I'm like, okay, I've gotten bigger in the chest and the shoulders because of the lifting. That's where the weight's coming in. It's not just, I can still fit in size 32 jeans.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, and that's a good point too, because when you do, a lot of people, and, fitness people are going to argue with me on this. You cannot gain muscle without gaining fat. The body just doesn't work that way. That's what they call it bulking for a reason, because in order to get the muscle on, you have to eat a lot of food. You have to eat in excess. Now you can keep that mostly muscle, but with that, there will still be, fat deposits on your body, because that's just how the body works. So anybody that tries to say otherwise, you can argue with me until you're blue in the face, but I know how bodies work. It's sheer science. It's just not possible. So if you're going to do that, we're, a lot of fitness competitors and figure competitors, because I've lived in that world too, and I've competed in that as well. When you're trying to bulk and gain muscle to then shred out to be lean and muscular on stage, you're going to gain fat. It's inevitable. But then it's all right, cool. I've got this muscle now. Let's kind of trim it down. And then that's where you find that new happy medium of like, all right, where can I maintain this? How can I keep this? But, fitness competitors, they post their photos online and whatever, but what they don't share is their off season. I've got, a few people I follow on Instagram that are very open about like, this is off season. And they're like, I'm chubby right now, but guess what? I'm eating all the foods. I'm drinking all the wine. I'm enjoying myself. And then when it comes time to prep, all right, now we're serious, diet's back on. But, but they don't do it for so long that they can't come back from it or create a bad habit. Yeah. So you just got to balance. Life's about balance without getting too philosophical.
It is all about balance. It's one of the things, and I like the idea what you said about like the jeans, because that was one thing. Like I had a pair of jeans that hung in the closet from like that I've probably had for 15 years.
Yeah.
I have not been able to put on for 15 years. And my wife's like, why? And I'm like, because one day I will put those on. And it was like July of last year where I was sitting there and I was goofing off and I was doing something in the closet. I think we were actually packing to move.
Okay, yeah, see, guess about your house.
And I'm like, I wonder. And I put them on and I'm like, they're too big.
And that's the best feel. Like that is better than any other feeling, right? Like when you've been busting your butt that much and then like the jeans either zip up perfectly or they're too big and you're like, I've done it. This is why I kept them.
It's like I did it. I finally fit. And then what was horrible was because I've been running so much, my legs had gotten bigger. So I ended up tearing, like I wore them for like a week and then they tore up the side of the leg because my legs, they fit in the waist, but my legs were too big.
Yeah, I have that problem, but in the butt. I always tear out the ass of my jeans and I'm like, this is just, man, I'm like the new stretchy jeans that like Highleat has them for men. Highleat, you need to make them for women because my husband loves them because he's got a big butt, big thighs, he's kind of a shorter but stocky guy, but he's got great legs and a great butt, and the jeans fit him wonderfully. We cannot buy him jeans off the rack. They just don't fit. And I have a hard time too. It's like, all right, what company this year is making the stretchiest jeans? Because those are the ones I need to be able to fit my butt in it, but not have like a gaping waist. But there's so many more companies now that are making them that are stretchy for athletes, which is amazing. They're just expensive and I'm kind of cheap. So I don't always indulge, but.
I run into problems. Because that's my problem. A lot of times and even when I was a kid, I rode bikes a lot. I did a lot. So my legs have always been bigger. So like Levi 501s, I can't get them above, like anything that's going to fit my waist is not going to go over my thigh.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that being a gymnast, all my power is in my legs. So it's, before having a big butt was cool. I've always had a big butt. Like it was just, I'm like, it's not going anywhere. That's where all my power is at. That's why my highest box jump, there's a really good fail video somewhere. It's on my Facebook. I don't know where, but oh my God, I had an epic fail on a box jump. I think it was 54 inches, something like that. The box was almost as tall as me and I just barely missed it. But the way the gym was set up and everything, I didn't have it against the wall. So the top thing kicked out and I totally flat backed. It was, oh my God. But you just hear my husband start cracking up laughing and the guy next to him is like, dude, like yelling at him. Like, I can't believe you're laughing at your wife. Like you can hear like the wind get knocked out of me, but it was epic. But I was like, there's a reason why I can almost jump my height and it's all in my ass and legs. I'm like, it's just that's where all my power is at.
Well, and as a gymnast, there's a lot of stuff you guys do. Gymnasts, they end up, that's why you see a lot of gymnasts have, very thick legs and big bums.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the power is,
Yes. And that's what I've always told everybody. And they're like, what do you do to get that, get that there, whatever. And I'm like, it's natural for me. It's the way I'm built, but I'm like, it's also, I did lift heavy prior to surgery and everything, but now I've done it for so long that my body can hold on to it, which thankfully helps, now when you're coming back from an injury that, you don't know, I won't have to work as hard to get back to where I was because muscle memory. I mean, it is a real,
you had a good base.
excuse me, it is a real thing. Yeah.
You had a good base. And I mean, that's one thing I think too, coming back from the surgeries as well. I mean, could you imagine trying to come back from those surgeries and not being in the shape you were before you went in? And I mean, it's just, and that's one of those things. I mean, being in those groups, I'm sure you see, like you said, a lot of people that are 6 weeks out that can't even walk a mile yet. Well, you had a different base than they did. And I think a lot of that too is like, when your dad's like, oh, you should have never let you be a gymnast. And it's like, but would you be where you are now without that training?
Exactly.
And everything, and becoming, how much worse would that have been without
100%.
the muscle and everything else and the body type that you have that you
Right.
got from being a gymnast?
Yeah. And that's always my comeback too. And that's one thing I tell, folks when I see on like the support pages and stuff that, it's, you should never run again after you have this surgery. My uncle, who actually, he passed away last year, he had three or four spinal surgeries. He had multiple fusions. He had to have one fusion redone. I mean, he had them in his lower back, in his cervical, and his upper neck. He had severe disc degeneration. He was an avid runner. And after every single surgery, he ran. Even after they found his brain tumor, he was diagnosed. They found his brain tumor because he ran a 5K at least 3 times a year or 3 times a week at the gym. And he had a trainer who he lifted with. He went into the shower to get changed and he fell and hit his head, and then he wasn't acting right. But that was how he got to the hospital to get the MRI done that actually found the tumor. But he had it for God knows how long, but he had been running all along with it. And I'm like, if he could do that, and even after his first, the first tumor removal in his head, I mean, his head was cut wide open, everything else, he was out walking every day as much as he could, until it came back. And then he had a second surgery. And then from there, it got a little tougher because, things were progressing quickly. But you just have to have that persistence and that resilience of like, doesn't matter what's going on. Like, I'm going to do something. And if anything, this is now the time to do it even more so because it's going to make the recovery easier. And that's what I tell a lot of people in that group is like, I'm not saying everybody should run again because some people just where they're at stage of life, where their activity level was to begin with, it may not be a good idea, but nothing says you can't walk or bike or do some light weightlifting or yoga or a lot of people, Pilates. Pilates is a really good activity that they tell everybody with back problems to do. And I've dabbled with it, but I think I'm going to start doing more of it once I'm cleared to do more of that kind of heavier stuff, not heavier, but like more movement.
Yeah, more movement.
Because I can't twist or bend for up to 6 months to a year, depending on how fast my spine fuses. Because trying to create bone, so twisting and bending will stop it from doing that. But it's like start now, get a base. If you don't want to do surgery now, then at least start hitting the gym and getting stronger, so that then you can have it done and come out stronger too. The stronger you go in, the stronger you come out. That's kind of my mentality.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those things. You get that base, you get it down, and it's a lot easier to get it back. Like you said, a lot of people don't know, I was an athlete in high school, and then stopped. So even my doctor's like, even though it's been that long, you still have that base down there. And once you build that base, that muscle base, it stays. So I was able.
Definitely.
I'm never gonna get back to that. I was 140 pounds when I graduated from high school. When I hit 180 this time, I look like you saw. It's like Skeletor.
Yeah, you were like Skeletor.
So I never want to get down to that. I'm comfortable about 190 to 210, somewhere in there. So I want to get back down about 10 pounds, but a lot of it depends on the muscle too. If I can build the muscle up and stay at 220, but get the muscle where I want it, then I'm fine. It's a lot about the fit, like you said, the muscle, and it's just get out and do something, keep moving. That's it. We, like I said, we get one body, and it's, before I lost the weight, I was pre-diabetic. My triglycerides were through the roof. And I had so many medical issues, and it's just like, my doctor's like, you've got to do something, or we're going to have to start putting you on meds. We're gonna have to do all that. And I'm like, I don't want meds.
Exactly.
I broke, some people know a Tough Mudder in September, I broke my rib. So even then they're like, here's, some Percocets. And I'm like, 5, cool. They're like, if you need more, let me know. I'm like, yeah, perfect. I think I have 3 of those 5 left.
Right.
I took one after the ultra because I already still had the cracked rib. It had only been 4 weeks. And
Right.
when I went to do the vertical cargo, because they had the table, I jumped up and I hit square on that rib. And the girl I was running with, she's like, she thought I was going to pass out. I dropped my knees and I'm like,
Probably like white as a ghost, like just,
everything's going black. I'm like, oh, that was a bad idea.
Right. Yeah. Your eyes are rolling back in your head. It's like, oh, he's going down. Oh God. Yeah. That's rough. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't like drugs. I'm like you. I don't like the drugs. I don't want
Right.
them. So,
Yeah.
but
I don't want him.
you know, but they're like, yeah, you're supposed to, they're gonna have to put me on medication because I was all these things. I'm like, okay, I need to lose weight. And when I went back in last year and had my physical, my doctor's like, I've been your doctor for like 15 years and I've never been able to say this, but your test results are all fine. Like,
Oh my gosh.
You're in the healthy range on everything. She's like, I am so proud of everything you've done. I'm like, yes. So
right. You like leave doing like a little happy dance, like leaving the doctor's office, like sliding out there like Michael Jackson's. Like people are like, man, what just happened in there? Like you're like, good doctor's appointment, all right.
Everything went good. It was funny too because she walked in and she's like, what happened? Because I had seen her in a year and I'd lost it. She's like, and then of course she did the normal, how did you do this?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like,
how
what have you been doing?
Explain to me what you did. So I want to make sure you did this the right way. And that was the thing. I'm like, no, I just started dieting and, did Weight Watchers to start with, and then just kind of learned how to adjust what I eat. And then I just started running.
Yeah. And that's a good point too. Weight Watchers, I think, is kind of an overlooked, people like think it's like just for like old ladies kind of thing, but I like Weight Watchers because it teaches you good habits. Like it teaches you what's good food and what's not good food, or like portions and things. Like it teaches you a lot of really good basics that you're never really taught. I mean, unless you like are interested in it, you start doing your own research and things. You learn your diet history, like you have things like that from like your family, and then in college. And college isn't always the great time for food because you're eating like a meal, meal haul or whatever. Or you're just eating pizza, 3-4 times a week, and your metabolism's still high, so it's fine. So I think Weight Watchers is kind of an overlooked tool that teaches really good habits without it being this drastic. Because when I use the term diet, I just mean how I eat. I'm not when I'm like, oh, well, my diet consists of, and they're like, oh, why do you diet? I'm like, no. We're using the term differently. I say diet as what I eat on a daily basis. You're using diet as how you eat sometimes. That's two very different things.
And that's it. A lot of people need to look at it that way. A diet isn't just like, hey, I'm going on it. It's like a diet literally is what you eat. We just all believe that, a diet is a bad thing, and it's not. It's just what we choose to eat. And that was one of the things with Weight Watchers. It, like you said, it taught me portion control. Like I can eat whatever I want. Do I want to eat that cookie? Yes, I can eat that cookie, but I only should have 2, not the box.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And also finding foods like that I like, but finding them in a better version.
Yes.
Like for me, chili. I love chili.
But if I go buy make such healthy chili.
If I could buy a can of $9 chili, that's going to be like my points for the day. But if I make chili from scratch, I can have a bowl and not have
and probably even a piece of cornbread.
Yeah. So it's all about what you put in, not the processed foods, get rid of the salts, the sugars, make your own food, and portion control. But if you eat enough throughout the day, like me, I just started like right now in my car, I have snacks. I have some, different types of trail mixes that, whatever I have. Usually I'll get pineapple, cut it up, stuff like that I keep in the car.
Yeah.
Because if I have that to snack on, because I drive like 16 hours a week, work, going back and forth to places for work. And if I have those in the car, I'm not going to stop at McDonald's.
Yep, exactly. So that was my nickname when I was racing pretty heavily before I moved to Alaska, was snacks, because I would on these long races, the vests and different things always rubbed funny on me, and I hated wearing them. So I would just stuff snacks in my bra, my sports bra. So I'd be out on the course, and all of a sudden I'd like pull out like a goo packet or like one of the little gel things, whatever. And people are like, "What else do you have in there?" And I'm like, "Don't you worry about it. These are mine."
It's all mine.
Because I did. I mean, in my car, everybody knew at work that I had a snack drawer full of snacks. I had a can of protein on my, desk. I mean, I always had anything. And one time actually it came in handy. A guy actually dropped, was having some blood sugar issues and some different stuff. And he actually dropped in the bathroom, and they thought he died. Like, they called 911. I mean, they were like, who knows 911? Like, we need somebody in here. And I was certified at the time. So I ran in, like, they show up, they drag me to the men's bathroom, and I'm like, okay, is like, I don't want to get myself in trouble. Like, I'm at work, you know, like, is everything covered? Are we good? And they're like, he's fine. He was at the sink, but like, you just come in. And it's like, okay. And sure, you know, I got him back. I pulled some food out of my drawer, because I was like, all right, it's like, you look very pale, your heart rate's erratic, like, the, you know, EMT is going to check you out, but like, let's try to get like I think it's your blood sugar, let's try to get it up, just based on how he looked and the other symptoms that he had. And I mean, it could, but potentially could have saved his life. I mean, he was so, like, when he came back like the next week to work, he had to take some days off and stuff. He was like, thank you so much. Like, I can't believe you knew what to do. And it was like, I mean, well, just, I was trained in it. I mean, luckily I had healthy food options that wouldn't spike his blood sugar so high that it would put him off the other end, but it got it up high enough that it leveled him out, that he was more coherent, and, you know, it kept him at a good spot, that then the EMTs and everybody could keep him level. But, you know, I have food everywhere, I mean, always. Everybody always in meetings, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm eating. And I'm like, I'm eating in almost every meeting you're in with me, whether you realize it or not. I'm probably eating.
Yeah, I mean, I have snacks everywhere, and then I have, like, you know, noon tablets everywhere, because I'm constantly drinking noon. You know, I'm an ambassador for noon, so it's nice. So I get it cheap.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I have noon, like, literally, like, in my car, I'm like, oh, when I went to leave this morning, because I'm, you know, gone from the house for 3 days in a hotel, and I'm like, I better make sure I have some noon. So I grabbed 2 of the tubes, go out to the car, open the center cancel. There's already 4 tubes in there. I'm like, oh, never mind.
You're like, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's how. I mean, I do miss my Fit Aid sponsorship, but as I'm sitting here drinking a Fit Aid during this, like, I mean, I still get it. I still use it. It's kind of my treat, you know. I drink water and coffee. Okay, and wine and Tito's. Sometimes Tito's with my Fit Aid. That's a great little cocktail. But, you know, I try to limit my alcohol intake. I do like the new Athletic Brewing stuff. Some of those I'm not a big beer drinker, but I do like stouts. Their stout is amazing.
No, try that
It's,
one.
you know, I mean, it's out, or it's like a near beer. I think there's like less than 0.2 of, you know, alcohol in it. But you know, if you do have to, like, I've got some friends that are, you know, like, cannot have alcoholic, whatever, but they like to drink something that doesn't have the flavor. And yeah, the Athletic beer comes in clutch. It's just, it's nice. It's good.
Yeah, no, I do the noon a lot, you know. And then the other one I had for, like, you know, me, I'm the same way. I have coffee and my water, and every morning I have, like, I'll drink an entire pot by myself. But what I did, and one of the big things for me, is when I first started dieting, I love Starbucks. So I'd go to Starbucks and get a mocha, and they're like, freaking, that's my sugar intake for the week.
Right. Oh, there's so much in there. You just don't realize it.
Yeah. So what I started doing is I got the Premier Proteins, the drink from Costco.
Okay.
And I'll brew a pot of coffee in the morning and pour the protein in it.
Yeah.
And there's my sweetener. So, you know, and everyone's like, oh, wait a minute. And, you know, I'm sure people have listened and heard me say this before, but I mean, it ended up being, I went from a 19-point drink on Weight Watchers to a 2, and I could drink the entire pot.
Right.
For 2 points.
Big difference.
So,
big difference.
And I get my protein, some of my protein for the day, but yeah.
When I used to tell a lot of people to do that, you know, swap their creamer out for protein or things like that. We know when they were like, their protein intake was so low, and we were trying to figure out ways to, like, sneak it into their diet because they just weren't good about it. And that was a big one that I always did. And people were amazed. They're like, I never would have thought about this. And I'm like, it's just a powder. It just like, you know, now the big things, you know, collagen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I do take a collagen supplement because, especially with the back trying to grow bone, like, anything I can do to make it go faster. Thank you, First Form, for coming out with that one. I am a First Form ambassador, so if anybody needs a discount code for them, let me know. It's OCR Amber, super easy. You get free shipping. But if you have questions about their products too, I can always answer them. But, like, I put a scoop of that in my coffee, a little bit of creamer. Okay, I'm a little heavy on the creamer, but I work from home, so I'm always home with it. You know, it's still not that bad. It's still better than like a Starbucks like mixed victory. Yeah, exactly. You know, a little bit of flavor in there, but I only do 1 cup a day. So that's kind of like my kickoff the day, and then there I go.
Yeah, see, I'm a full pot a day. I love my coffee, and it's I have my coffee maker set to make coffee every morning. And
I just have a little Keurig. I just do like a single, I got like the like reusable little pot, and just.
I have the Keurig Duo. So I can either
okay.
do a Keurig, or I can have the other side's an actual coffee pot. So
Yeah.
I'll do an entire one in the morning. And
That's
then
smart.
pour it. I have a thermos, and I pour the protein cup pot, the whole pot and the protein in there, and
That's
off I
smart.
go.
Well,
But
and how much money you save too.
oh yeah,
That's huge.
it was like, because a lot of people know I'm an ex-smoker, and I smoked and I quit smoking, and it was like one of those things. One day, Amber is looking at my wife's name's Amber, by the way, but
I
she's
think I
like,
remember that. Yeah, we talked about it
yeah.
last time.
She's almost like, you probably should go back to smoking because it's cheaper than your coffee habit. So I'm like, no, I don't want to, but yeah. So
I know, yeah.
yeah. Well, part of the
That's
problem was too, is my whole job, there was a Starbucks below us.
Oh, yeah.
So literally I'd be sitting at my desk and I could smell it. It was just right below me. And then I'd be like, I think I want a Starbucks. So I'd end up some days 2 or 3 in a day. So that's
So
when I was like,
my-
yeah. It's like,
I've
yeah,
worked
I
at
can't
2
keep doing
offices like that. 2 of my old offices had Starbucks in the buildings. And then one, when I was working for a bank and back in Ohio, I won't say names because I don't know how they get weird about this stuff, but there, I literally worked across the hallway. So like there's a big open hallway, and I could stare at Starbucks all day. And there was people that I would count were in there 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day buying coffee. And I was like, I should go ask them what they do, because they clearly make more money
Yeah.
than I am. And I need to figure out how to get their job that they can afford 5 Starbucks. And it was every day, like clockwork. I'm like, holy moly, like this is nuts. And company I worked for here in Austin, same thing. It was everybody every day. All right, we're going on our Starbucks run. Who wants to go? And I was like, I'll go walk because it gets me up out of my desk. But I was like, I'm not buying anything. And they're like, well, we'll get you. I'm like, no, it's not a matter of like money. I'm like, I can afford the Starbucks. Like, I don't want the calories or the, whatever. I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'll just get up and move because it's healthy and it's good for me. But I don't need the coffee. I got my water. I'm still trying to put down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why for me, it was just one of those. Once I did that, it was like the money I saved and everything else. And I mean, it just, and the calories. I mean, the calories and the sugar. And it's like, for me, one of my biggest, like I said, pineapple is one of my favorites. That's my favorite snack because it kills my sweet tooth.
Yeah.
I get the sweet, but it's a lot better than, anything else I would be using. So this acidity every once in a while, I have to take a break from it because sometimes the acidity will start to
Kind of like eats in the inside of your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love pineapple too, though. But you're right, though. And then even with fruit, I tell people, they're like, well, fruit's still sugar. I'm like, yes, but it's a different kind of sugar. Like your body can break that down because it's more natural than like the white sugar that's used in everything else. It's like your body doesn't know how to break that down. Like sugar equals sugar is not the case. Like the sugars are different, just like carbs are different and proteins are different, different. Everybody's body's going to react differently to them.
Yeah. And that's her part too. I think that was one of the big things, like when me and my wife started doing Weight Watchers and stuff, where all of a sudden I was just like stuff's melting off, and she's like, what the hell? And I'm like, for one, not some, but we're different,
right?
And I was doing a lot more cardio, so it's like of course it's gonna melt off a lot faster.
And men's bodies seem to do that. Like my dad can cut soda out of his diet and he'll drop 20 pounds, just boom. My mom's over there going, I think I just gained your 20 and I stopped drinking soda. Like, I don't understand why this did. It's like, your body's different than his, and men's bodies just respond a little faster, but women's take a little bit longer. But then I feel like women can maintain it longer too. It may take them longer to get there, but it's not so drastic, which is frustrating. But then once you're there, it's like, okay, I can maintain this, where men tend to kind of fluctuate a little more from what I've seen, with people I've trained and known and that kind of stuff.
I kind of see the same thing a lot of times, where it's like, once, especially my wife, once she hits a spot, she'll stay there and she can maintain it. For me, it's, I'll go up and down quite a bit depending on what I do. So, and I can go quick. So it's funny. It's like right now I've been kind of, I was a little frustrated because when we went to Dallas, of course, I was looking at weight, stupid me, and got back from Dallas and I was 215. And all of a sudden, like last week, within like a week and a half, I was 230. I'm like, well, where the heck did that 15 pounds come from?
What? And but though, a lot of it's water.
It is. And that was it. I started drinking a lot more water again because I wasn't really, because we went to, of course, when we were in Dallas and Texas, I went to restaurants and you got to go get steaks. Yes. We did all that. And then all of a sudden it was like, before I left this morning, I was back down to 215 and I'm like, okay. So it's just kind of, it was that water retention. And that's the scary part of the scale, because you get on the scale and it can fluctuate so much. That's why, like you said, take your jeans, I put my jeans on, the jeans didn't change how they fit, but
Exactly.
the water was there. So that's one thing you got to really think about, and the size measurements.
Yep.
Is so much more important.
Absolutely. Makes such a difference.
It does. So we've been going for a bit. Dawn usually tells me to keep it around an hour, and I'm really bad about that. We're a little over an hour. So we'll definitely we got to do this more. It's always fun talking to you. I mean,
yes,
I really like talking because you think a lot like I do, but it's more of, get out there and do things. We have that same thought process. Just get out there and move. Like I said, I'm a Noon ambassador. Right. I love it, partly because I love their logo. It's just move.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I do. I love that. And I think I've used Noon once. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to go get some and try it, because I haven't used it in forever. If I did ever use it, I think I used it in one race.
The one thing that is right now, they just got a new fall flavor, and it's one of their immunity ones. It's like vitamins, and it's spiced cider.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'm a cider. I don't like pumpkin anything. I like cider. But spiced cider, like apple cider, I'm all about it. And so it's like a spiced cider one. And I'm like, oh, this one's actually really good. So it's a fall one. They're only going to have it for a bit. So I might have to buy a whole bunch of them. So
right, like stock up now.
Because they have some other ones. There's one that they do during the summer called Kona Cola, which I don't like, but a lot of people do. And there's a couple other ones that they have some that's like seasonal, that they only come out at certain times a year. So
that is interesting. I like how that First Form does that with a lot of their like different ones. Like here's like a winter one or a fall one. Like summer is like lighter, more fruity, and then it gets into like the heavier, more like kind of pie type ones that are a little like more. They're not filling; they're the same like breakdown, but they just seem heavier because of the flavor. But
I know I keep one to order because they have like a mint one, and I love peppermint.
The mint was really good.
So I've thought about putting that in my coffee, because that was the coffee that I used to love this time of year when they would get the peppermint mochas. And I'm like, I got to stay away. Got to stay away.
I will say the First Form peppermint one, they do it every winter. I normally order a couple of those and I keep them in my like dry stock, and then I'll pull them out. It is really good. It's really good.
I'm going to have to order one of those. But
yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fun talking. Is there anything you want to say to listeners before we head out? Like any last comments?
Just keep moving. Yeah, I mean, I know it seems like a broken record, but just even if you're down, even if you're, listen to your body. If you're sick and your body is like telling you, hey, I need to slow down, slow down. It's okay not to race every weekend. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm hurting. I need to get this checked out. And it's okay to push through if it feels like you can push through. Just the big thing is knowing your body and paying attention to the signs that it's giving you to keep yourself from doing permanent damage. Yeah. I think I'll end with that.
Because that's the thing, like I said, you'll pay for it when you're older. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's like, absolutely. I really, like I said, I think I should have had the knee surgery, but at the same time, I'm like, back then I kept seeing what my dad did when he went through knee surgery, and I just kept thinking that same thing, but it's come a long way. So we'll have to see. If it doesn't get better, it might be something I have to eventually look at. But
yeah, I mean, now you walk out of knee surgery for the most part. So it's come a long, long way.
But I want to run out of
it. Normally within like 4 to 6 weeks, you're running again for most of them, depending on what they got to do. So it's.
In 11 days, I hit 500 days straight of running.
Oh my gosh. It would definitely be a hard mental thing, but
I'm about to hit my halfway.
Better it would be after.
I'm halfway to the comma. So.
You can get there. You can do it.
All right.
Well, that's awesome. As always, it's been a pleasure. Keep me posted too if you guys wind up in Texas. It'd be awesome to get up or meet up and get together and all that. So.
Well, right now, I mean, just let you know, and I'll let you know, we are planning on possibly in March the Spartan in San Antonio.
Oh, definitely let me know, because that's super close. And yeah, I always try to get like my husband and my son and stuff. I doubt I'll be able to run by then. They typically say no running for a year. But I mean, nothing says I can't volunteer and go cheer people on.
Volunteer, cheer them on. So.
Exactly.
All right. Perfect. Well, hopefully I will see you then.
Yes. Talk to you soon.
All right. Talk
Bye.
soon.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.